Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So, for those of you who have done a People before, welcome back. For those of you who are brand new to People, you are very welcome and hopefully find yourselves in very good company. So, the format, those of you who've been before, is usually Tom does the intro, I do the workshop, and then Tom does the outro. And today we have completely flipped it on its head. So Tom is doing the workshop today. So it's a real treat for everyone who hasn't heard him speak before in that way. And I am doing all the really super organized stuff that Tom normally does, which he's amazing at, and I am a total nightmare at. So bear with me when there is chaos in the chat box. I am doing my best. He has given me a structure, but we'll see how it goes, right? So, for those of you who don't know us, Tom and I are part of Beam Development and Training, and Beam deliver wellbeing, leadership, and personal development training in organisations all around the world. We work in over 45 countries, and we work on delivering lunch and learns all the way up to delivering wellbeing programs that extend way beyond years in organisations. And one of the things that we have realized is that lots of our clients are incredibly busy, incredibly in excess demand. And well-being in particular is something that causes them quite a lot of stress in trying to work out meaningful well-being strategies that have real impact on their staff. And so, given our years of experience in this field, we came up with a simple way for you to deliver well-being to your employees across the entire year. And it's our annual well-being plan. It's a monthly planned session. You can choose a session out of 50 different topics, unlimited online employee access, so they can you can do it whether it's 10 employees or whether it's 1,000 employees, makes no difference. They get lots of resources that support each workshop, 50 science-backed wellbeing and leadership topics to choose from. Once you've chosen them, Tom and I basically set everything up. It starts from 6,000 plus VAT a year. If you are interested in that, book a discovery call with us in the chat. I will put a link in a moment. I can't do two things at once. And we can help you start mapping out what 12 months of meaningful, impactful wellbeing support could look like for your organization from a really low cost. If you want Beam to support you in other ways, if you're looking for a keynote speaker, if you're looking for a lunch and learn, if you're looking for a leadership program, then please feel free to reach out to us and we will be happy to help you. Okay, that's it from me for now. I've got to try and stay quiet, which is unusual for me, and hand over to the brilliant Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Leanne. All of these sessions as well, it's worth noting, all of these, this info that Leanne just shared will be shared post-session in the email, along with the recording and ways to sign up to future events as well. So thank you, Leanne. We'll invite you back at the end, but stay on mute. Okay, so welcome along to today's session on role models. This is a session that I delivered a few times and really enjoy diving into what makes a good role model within life, within work. So I hope you enjoy this session as well. So Leanne's already done a bit of an intro about Beam as well, so there's no need to go over that again. But if you are a first-time visitor along to these sessions, then do head over to beamtraining.co.uk for more info. You'll be able to sign up to the other free events that we have going on as well. So today we are going to explore why role models matter in the workplace. We're going to start to understand the psychology behind influence. We're going to recognize how positive and negative behaviors spread. And then we're going to finish off with finding practical ways to become a more conscious role model. So you should all leave with a action plan into how to become a better role model in the workplace. So in the research for this session, we started to ask our community and the network and everyone in the People network to answer some questions, really, all around role models. And we started off by looking at, do you actually have a role model? And and 60% reported that they don't have a role model, formal or informal. There wasn't really a difference. And only 40% of you do have one. So what this session will do, will start to explain how we can start to become more of a conscious role model and how we can make a change. So then we then further went into, if you had a mentor, like where did that relationship come from? And 60% or just under 60% of you came back and said that your mentor, you found them through work, whether a formal or informal program, whether it's set up in the workplace or someone that you have just watched. And then the remaining 40% was made up of personal network and finding them yourselves, which is absolutely fine as well. So, and then we also, that's one of the final things that we looked at was how do you hope others learn from the way that you show up? Or so rather, what do you hope others learn from the way that you show up? And 39% of you said kindness, and 37%, making up most of the people that answered, said integrity. So these were really important values to start demonstrating to the people that are learning from you, or for those that you don't know are watching you. So this is just a way that we can start to guide our decisions at work when it comes to becoming a better role model. So first of all, we're going to head over to the chat function, and what I'm going to do is going to ask, if you do have one, who is your role model and why? So think of someone who has shaped the way you work, the way you lead, communicate, or treat others. What did they model? Was it something that they said, that they did, or how they made people feel? And what behavior did you then carry forward from them? So, and I give everybody a moment to share, and so we'll be sharing a couple of them in just a moment. It might take a few of you a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share a story of just one of my role models. So in my previous career, I was in construction, and I started off working for a family business, and it was led by my dad. And most of the jobs were totally fine, but as we started to develop as a company, our jobs got a little bit bigger, and it was quite clear that we needed someone to organize, someone to project lead, someone to govern the way that we were doing stuff and look at ways of how we can improve. And this is where my Uncle Jim came in. Great experience. He came from being a carpenter, and he moved all the way up and progressed into project management. And by the end of his career, he's retired now, he ended up being the project lead for the whole of the Southwest for a company called Bouygues, big construction multinational firm. So he was really, really credible. But he came in, and for a short contract, he started to manage what we were doing. And he gave me lots of advice. But one of the things that I took away from it was he taught me how to challenge the process. He taught me how to look at the efficiency and if we could do things better. It was still with the same result, but how could we get there in a more efficient way, more cost-effective way? And he started to inspire that curiosity in me. So I'll be forever grateful to my Uncle Jim. I did once tell him in a letter, and so yeah, I hope that made an impact. Okay, so I'm going to head over to the chat now. So giving you enough time. Okay. Antonio Rose, a school improvement leader, and now he is a head teacher. Inspirational. Wonderful. Rachel, so one of my directors, model compassion and kindness, traits that I like to embody in everyday work and interaction with people. Yeah, like that's a leader that we can get behind, isn't it? Someone that is compassionate and kind. Okay, so Natasha, my previous manager, was always happy to work on the shop floor, help out where he could, make things work. He never expected anyone to do something he would never do himself, and would stick by what he believed in. He would also have trust and faith in his team, giving us opportunities when others doubted. I think this is wonderful. So Kate, my boss, she's amazing and seems to be a sort of superwoman. No idea how she does it. She's calm, measured, and manages to see the big picture in crisis. Mally, a colleague of mine who was calm, collected, very professional. Ah, wonderful. Like, so it's really clear from the chat is when we start to look at people that deal with situations in a way that gives us hope or inspires us, they suddenly become someone that we want to be a bit more like, or they want to is someone that we want to model, whether we tell them that they are a role model or not, or a mentor, however you want to frame it. It's clear that it is something that we feel that needs to be a little bit of a make a change in us. So we usually choose a role model or a mentor because of something they showed us. It might have been how they handled pressure, or how they treated people, how they listened or challenged us, how they gave us confidence, or how they make us feel. And that's exactly why role models matter so much at work. Culture is not only shaped by what the organization says, it's shaped by what people repeatedly see. So every official workplace has an official culture. So the values, the policies, the training, leadership statements, but it also has a hidden curriculum. So this matters because culture works in exactly the same way. So people don't just learn from what organization says, they learn from what they repeatedly see. And that brings us to the hidden curriculum of work. So in every workplace, there are two versions of culture. There's that official version, like I just said, the values that are displayed on the website, the policies, the induction process, posters on the wall. And then there's the lived version, what people actually see, what happens day to day. That lived version is what we might call the hidden curriculum of work. It's how people learn. It's it's the things we notice. It's what gets rewarded here, what gets ignored, what behaviors help people get ahead, what behaviors create a risk, whether it's safe to speak up or okay to admit a mistake. And this is where role models become really powerful, because people do not learn workplace culture from simply being told it. In fact, many of us have probably forgotten what some of the workplace values are, but we learn by watching people. We watch leaders, we watch our peers, watching the high performers, uh, how people respond under pressure and stress. Notice what gets praised and what gets challenged or brushed under the carpet. So role models matter because they translate culture from words into behavior. A company might say, we value respect. But if people see interruptions, blame, dismissive behavior, um, and all of that becoming tolerated, then that becomes the real lesson. But a company might say we value well-being, but if everyone who gets who works late gets praised, or everyone who sets boundaries is seen as less committed, again, what's the real lesson here? So once we recognize that people learn real culture by watching what happens around them, the next question is, who are they learning from? So role models are the people who set the tone, the people whose behavior comes a reference point, the people who show others, consciously or not, what good looks like. And this is where there's a useful distinction between success and standards. Someone can be successful without being a healthy role model, but the strongest role models don't just show people how to win or progress, they show people how to behave whilst doing it. And a great example of this comes from John Wooden, a legendary basketball coach, and he was obsessed with standards. So In Simon Sinek's recent podcast, I think it was about a month ago now, the podcast itself was called A Bit of Optimism. He was in conversation with Don Yeager, another great coach, about the legendary basketball coach Don Wooden. And Wooden was regarded as one of the most successful college basketball coaches of all time. But what's interesting is that he wasn't obsessed with winning, although he did that really well. He was obsessed with standards. Human standards in particular. So one famous example that you might have heard of, or you might have seen in a motivational post somewhere on LinkedIn, was about how the team put their socks on. He made sure that the team put their socks on in the right way, so they wouldn't get blisters or anything that might cause discomfort. And this was just one of the small processes that he instilled in order for consistency. And it made a difference. There's lots of other examples of other teams doing similar things to have consistency in their improvement. Like something else that comes to mind is the Sky cycling team during the Tour de France. They actually, the team around them brings their own personalized mattresses to every hotel they go to. Now, that is consistency. So John Wooden, he cared about how people showed up, how they treated each other, whether they recognized the person who gave them that assist, a great pass, whether the best player on the team still followed the same rules as everybody else. And this matters because role models do more than show how to succeed. They show how people to behave while succeeding. Back during the podcast about mentorship with Simon Sinek and Don Yeager, Yeager talks about meeting Wooden every other month, but he couldn't just turn up and passively receive that wisdom. He had to come back and say, here is what you taught me last time, here is how I used it, and here is how I'm better because of it. So we think a role model is someone that just gives out advice, but this role model where we're actually creating that accountability is really, really powerful, because that's when we start to turn learning into action. So when we ask what makes someone a role model, this person creates visibility, credibility, consistency, and the impact they have on the people around them. So role models set standards, whether they mean to or not. And sometimes those standards lift people, and sometimes they quietly give permission for behaviours that we don't really want. So it is worth looking at both sides of that influence. Role modeling doesn't really have a moral filter. It doesn't only pass on the behaviours we want more of, it passes on whatever people repeatedly see, especially if that behaviour appears to work. So positive role modeling raises the standard. It shows people what looks good in practice. It might be someone staying calm during pressure, owning a mistake, or giving credit to others, or challenging something respectively. Those behaviors, they make good practice visible. They give other people permission to behave in the same way. But negative role modeling works through the exact same mechanism. So if someone with influence cuts corners, blames others, interrupts, dismisses people, overworks constantly, or reacts aggressively under pressure, that also teaches people something. It teaches them what gets tolerated. And the most damaging lesson in the workplace is not what someone says, it's what everyone sees being allowed. So when you go back to work, start to become aware. So what behaviors are we making it easier for other people to copy? Because what gets modeled often is what gets repeated. And this starts to take us into the psychology of why we copy certain people, why some behaviors spread faster than others, and why we are often most influenced by the people who feel familiar, visible, or close to us. There we go. We often assume we are most influenced by people in formal positions of authority. And yes, leaders do absolutely matter. But psychologically, influence is often is subtle. It's something that's not quite as obvious as that. We're strongly shaped by people who feel close, familiar, visible, and relatable to us. So one useful idea here is the propinquity effect, which suggests that we are more likely to build a connection with people we encounter regularly. So in workplace terms, this means the people that we sit near, meet with often, travel with, work alongside, or hear from repeatedly. And these can become powerful role models even without ever being officially named as one. And we could also look into the mere exposure effect. Put simply, the more we see someone, the more familiar they feel. And familiarity can quietly increase trust, liking, and influence. We could also have parasocial relationships. Now, these are a bit more one-sided, where we feel connected to the people, but we don't actually know them. We often talk about this with celebrities or speakers, authors, online figures, but it can happen inside organizations too. So a senior leader who is highly visible through videos or town halls, like posts or internal messages, may influence people they rarely directly meet. But back to the Simon Sinek conversation with Von Jaeger. So Wooden apparently considered Mother Teresa and Abraham Lincoln to be his mentors, even though he'd never actually met them. But he studied them so deeply that they became a part of how he thought, reflected, and grew. And that's important because not every role model is someone that we sit opposite in a formal meeting or mentor relationship. Sometimes we're shaped by people that we study, that we listen to, we read about, or repeatedly observe from a distance. Underneath all of this sits Bandura's social learning theory, developed through his observational learning research in the 70s. Bandura showed that people learn by watching others, especially when that behavior seems rewarded, accepted, or is seen as successful. So people don't copy the person with the biggest title. They copy the people that they repeatedly observe, relate to, trust, admire, and feel connected to. So this means that role modeling is happening everywhere, in meetings, team chats, pressure moments, casual conversations, what we praise and what we ignore. So if we want to understand role modeling at work, we need to ask, who has people's attention? And what are they teaching through their behavior? Because once someone has our attention, that next layer is status. Some people's behavior carries more weight, not because they're better, but because they're more visible, more respected, and seen closer to success. This is why high status people in a workplace are watched so closely. People notice how they speak in meetings, how they handle pressure, what they prioritize, who they're listening to, what they challenge, and what they let pass. And if a person appears successful, people start to assume consciously or unconsciously, maybe that's what success looks like here. This is where role modeling connects strongly with identity, because role models give us hope. They help us see what's possible or what the future could look like. When someone sees a person they relate to leading well or speaking up, setting boundaries, it creates a powerful internal message. Maybe people like me can do that too. But there is also a risk. If if the only people who seem to progress are the loudest, busiest, most politically skilled, or the ones that never show vulnerability, people learn that this is what they have to do to become successful. So status amplifies influence, and this means organizations need to think carefully about who is visible, whose behavior gets rewarded, and what version of success people are being invited to copy. Which brings us to the difference between informal role modeling and intentional development relationships, like mentors and sponsors. So time to head back to the chat box. And I'd like you to do is think about two things. So thinking that you are now a role model, what is one behavior that you want to model more of, and one behavior that you want to model less of? So yeah, just you can type that in a word or a short sentence. Kindness, complaining. I'll assume that's the right way around, is you want to be more kind and less complaining. Wonderful. Okay. So I'll give everyone a chance to go through that. If they want, you don't have to share. Absolutely no pressure at all. Okay. So as you're thinking about that, this isn't about judging yourself harshly. No one wants to, none of us get this right all of the time. We want to notice that we're always giving people information through how we show up. Yes, Kate. Working too late, definitely do less of that. We support that completely. And organizedness, I think. Okay. So people may be learning from how we respond under pressure, how we speak in meetings, how we handle mistakes, what we praise, what we tolerate. But sometimes we model things we're proud of. Sometimes, without meaning to, we model stress over responsibility, defensiveness, people pleasing, avoidance, or taking on too much. So keep it simple. And that's going to be a part of what you're going to take away later as well. So really, really reflect on that. So this small distinction matters because role modeling becomes more powerful when we move from accidental to intentional. And once we start thinking about this at an individual level, we can start to ask bigger cultural questions. So how do we make the right behaviors more visible and repeatable and easier for people to copy? So Rita Pearson's TED Talk, Every Kid Needs a Champion, is about education, but this line transfers really well into the workplace. Kids don't learn from people they don't like. Now, in a workplace context, I don't think this means that everyone has to like us personally. That's not the point here. But the deeper point is that people are far more likely to learn from us, take feedback from us, stretch themselves, and take developmental risks when there is trust, respect, and connection. So I'm sure most of us can remember a teacher, a manager, someone we used to work with, who made a difference because they believed in us. They may have still challenged us. They may have held us to a higher standard. But because we felt that they were for us, we were more willing to listen, to try, to fail, to learn and grow. So when we think about practical role modeling behaviors, this is where we start. We need to build connection first. We need to stay calm under pressure. We show belief in people's potential. We need to give feedback that is clear and kind. We need to notice effort and progress, not just outcomes. And we need to own our mistakes and then repair it when we get it wrong. So these behaviors are simple, but they are not small. They create the conditions where people feel safe enough to learn and supported enough to improve. So think about showing people behaviors they can actually copy, especially in the moments that matter, like when we're under pressure, when we're challenged, when feedback needs to be given, there's mistakes or change. So again, that ties into what we want to model more of and what behaviors we want to model less of. So how are we going to make that visible in the week or weeks or months ahead? You need to create a bit of a plan. Let's bring some intention back into how we're showing up. Because role modeling only becomes useful when we move from a good idea into that visible behavior. So here are the 4 parts. First, what do you want to do more of? So that might be calm, confidence listening, being more organized. And then what do you want to model less of? So this might be reactivity, avoidance, overworking, taking too much on, rescuing people, criticizing, or just absorbing those problems that don't belong to you. Third, where will you make it visible? Because if role modeling is about what people see, we need to then choose a real moment. And that is a real moment at work. So it might be a next team meeting, a one-to-one, a difficult conversation, a deadline, feedback moment, or simply how you respond when someone comes to you under pressure. And then finally, how will you reinforce it to others? This is important because culture changes faster when we don't just model a behavior ourselves, but we notice it when other people do it too. So if someone sets a good boundary, acknowledge it. If someone speaks up constructively, thank them. If someone owns a mistake, don't punish the honesty. If someone stays calm under pressure, name the value of that. The action plan itself doesn't need to be big or complex. In fact, it's probably better if it's small and specific. So one model more, what behavior to model more of, less of, where we're going to practice it and how we can reinforce it. Because we need to be visible, consistent, and this is how we start to shape the culture. So as we close, I'd like to just bring the whole session back to one simple idea. People are already learning from what we do. So take the opportunity to become more conscious about what we make it easier for others to copy. If you'd like to share how you're gonna make it visible or reinforce it in the chat, then great. We'd love to see how you plan on doing that. So the main message from today is role models shape the hidden curriculum of work. People don't only learn from policies, values, or training, they learn from what they see repeatedly happening around them. They copy what is visible, what is rewarded, and what is simply tolerated. We've also looked at why this happens psychologically. The brain watches behavior, emotion, status, and consequence. It notices who appears safe, successful, respected, and relatable. And it uses that information to understand how things work here. So positive role modeling matters because it builds trust, confidence, psychological safety, which happens to be our next lunch and learn. But it gives people permission to behave in better ways. And culture changes when those behaviors are not just talked about, but consistently modeled. So the challenge is simple. Become more conscious of what you're making it easier for others to copy. So thank you. I'm going to hand back over to Leanne. She's going to share what's coming up next.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tom. That was so interesting. The way you introduced the hidden curriculum, for me, that's kind of the light bulb moment of the whole session, is just realizing and being aware of like what people say isn't what's copied, it's what people do. Human beings are natural mimics. So
And we do that. We do that even as children. So
yeah,
we don't ever stop copying what other people do. We naturally want shortcuts in how to do it the best way.
yeah, makes sense. So it's a quick way to learn, right? It's by seeing how people have done it well and what's gone badly. Yeah, fascinating. So thank you. If you have any questions for Tom, please pop them in the chat box, or we will stop recording if anyone wants to ask a question on mic. We'll stop recording shortly. In the time being, just a couple of things to say. So this session, as with all the previous sessions, will be online and available to you. Tom will send you an email where you can access the full recording. You're welcome to share that with colleagues if you found it useful, and any resources. If you want any support from Beam, if you want to find out more about what we're doing, how we can support you, your organization, your team, please do reach out and schedule a call with us. The link is above. We have a People LinkedIn group, which is growing all the time. So you are more than welcome to hop onto LinkedIn and join that. There's all the links coming up now. And our next workshop is a big one because it's certainly in the last 12 months is the topic I've delivered most, which is psychological safety, understanding how important psychological safety is, but from that people-centric angle. So if you're not somewhere lovely and tropical sunning yourselves, join us on the 7th of July at 12 o'clock for that session. And just a tiny little sneaky bit of information. You are the first people to know. In the autumn, we have something very, very exciting coming called People Plus. We're not going to tell you very much about it. We just wanted to reveal the branding. We've been doing People now since September 2025, 4. So we're nearly coming up
2
to
years, nearly 2 years.
2 years
Yeah.
of People. We've supported countless people. Like we've had way more than 1,000 people come through the sessions, and we want to keep building on that. So we are coming together with People Plus. Lots of exciting stuff. If you want to be one of the first people to hear about it, pop on a call with us and we will gladly tell you about it, and maybe you can even be involved as well. Tom, if you can, yes, share a slide. Oh, we've got new corporate photos as well. So we've popped a new corporate photo on there. If you need more help and support, you can connect with us on LinkedIn.